In this series, we're going to be getting into artificial intelligence. So we're not talking about the AI that's like ChatGPT or Dolly, where they're using huge data sets to generate some new content. It's more like a character that you can drop into your game that can intelligently and dynamically make decisions about what it should do based on where you, the player, are. So that's stuff like whether or not it should attack you or run for cover, or if there's a weapon nearby that maybe it could pick up, or if it has destinations that it needs to go to and stuff like that. That's what we're going to get into. We're going to start super, super simple, and then we're going to build it up from there. So let's get into it. So the very first thing that we need to do is we need to open up a blank project. So go ahead and open up Unity Hub and create a new 3D core template, and you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine like AI NPC. Sure. And then go ahead and click create. We're going to be programming this via brute force, so we're just going to do whatever it takes to get this character's behavior up and working the way we want it to, and then we'll take a look at optimizing it once it's working. Once you have Unity open, I'm going to redo the layout just so we can see the scene view and the game view. To get started, we do need an object to stand in as the player, so I'm going to right-click in the hierarchy view and create a 3D cube. And this will stand in for our player. So I'm calling this cube player, and I'm actually going to tag it as player as well. So this will be the target that we can use to test. We're probably not going to code this too much at all since we're focusing on the NPC, so we'll probably just be dragging it around the scene view to simulate movement and make sure that the NPC can chase us. Let's go ahead and create another cube, and this one will be our floor. So let's go ahead and set the scale to like 20 on the X and 20 on the Z. And I'm going to make sure that my player is above the floor. Beautiful. On the floor game object here, go ahead and check this static box. This means that the floor isn't going to move. So once we bake the nav mesh area, the NPC will know where it can and cannot go within this floor. The other thing about creating a setup is you might be having some obstacles, right? There might be like stuff that the NPC will have to go around, like buildings and trees or whatever the heck is in your environment. So let's go ahead and create a stand-in for that. Like it could be whatever. I'm going to make it a cube. Let's say obstacle. I'm going to make this like 5 on the Z. Sweet. And then you can position this in the environment wherever you want it to be. So for me, maybe that's going to be like there. And I'll create a second obstacle as well. This will be an obstacle that's tall. Maybe this is a 5 on the Y. And we'll set this one up maybe like here. And then just like you did for the floor, go ahead and check. So select both obstacles by holding down Shift and selecting both in your hierarchy view. And then check the static box. This, again, lets the nav mesh know, hey, these aren't going to move. So once you bake the nav mesh, these are going to stick in place so we can, well, you'll see. We're about to set that up. We probably won't be dealing with dynamic nav meshes, although maybe we could later on, but we're going to start simple and then move up from there. A dynamic nav mesh being like, if this obstacle does move, the walkable and not walkable areas needs to update. But let's go ahead and create one more 3D object, and this is going to be a capsule, and this one I'm going to call the NPC. This NPC needs to have a component called a Nav Mesh Agent. So go ahead and add a Nav Mesh Agent to it. And now we can finally go ahead and bake our Nav Mesh area so that this little capsule guy knows where he can go or not go. So go ahead and go to the window up here, this window drop-down menu, go to AI and Navigation. This window right here is where you can set different objects to be walkable or not walkable. So this obstacle, I'm going to hit Shift and hold the other one as well. The navigation area, this little menu here, says it's walkable. Go ahead and change that to not walkable. And then the floor is walkable. Now that you've set all of the things in your environment the way you want them to be, go ahead and go to Bake. Go ahead and click Bake. And that worked really quickly. Now you can see in our scene view, the blue areas are what's walkable. So this is where our capsule will know where to go. And you can see that it's carved out a little ring around those things that we marked as obstacles that are not walkable. So it will have to go around them in order to get to its destination. Okay, so now that we have this, I'm just gonna show you the most basic of basic AI code for this, and then we're going to actually go back. I'm going to make a flow chart of what our behavior should be, and we'll start crafting something a little bit more complex. But for the most basic of basic, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder down here, and we're going to call it scripts. And then in this folder, go ahead and right click and create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this I guess enemy AI. It may or may not be an enemy though. This NPC may or may not attack you. It might just be like a townsperson. So maybe I'm going to call it NPC AI. And we're going to want to attach this script to the NPC object. So make sure that this NPC object that we created has the NPC AI script. Please take it. There you go. All right, it has the script, so go ahead and double click and open that guy up in Visual Studio. So our NPC object has a component that we added called a Nav Mesh Agent. It's important that if we're going to use that component, we need to grab a reference to the component we want, which is the Nav Mesh Agent. We also then in start, we want to grab a handle to the component that's attached to this game object. That's where you actually assign it to the component that's there. And then in update, let's say we want to use a method that's going to set a destination so that it has a target that it's going to go to. So maybe up at the top, let's create a variable for a target, which is probably a game object. What we're going to do is we're going to set our destination to the target. This may or may not need to be an update. We might be able to get away with it just called in start, but let's see. So if you want to do this as a challenge, you can go ahead and pause the video right here and try to complete this program on your own. And what you should see if you get it working correctly, on the NPC, there should be an area where you can drop in this player game object into it, like set it as the target. And when you hit play, the NPC should snap to the grid and it should automatically follow the player around. So you can move the player anywhere you want, and the NPC should calculate a pathway to the target and go there. So hopefully you paused it. Hopefully you figured it out. If not, I'm about to give a solution right now. So the very first thing is we need a reference to the Nav Mesh Agent component. In order to do that, we're going to say it's a private, capital N, nav. And notice that over here, it's saying unityengine.ai. We might need another namespace up at the top in order to use this component. Oh, look that. It adds it automatically. Love that. Okay, so this namespace up at the top allows us to call on this kind of component. So private nav mesh agent, I'm going to call this _agent. Now that we have a reference to this component, we need a handle to that component, meaning up here, this is just us saying, hey, we're using this, but the computer doesn't yet know which component that is, on what object, where. So what we need to do is we need to say agent equals a get component call, and luckily the component that we want is on the same object that this script is attached to. So we can just do a get component directly. We don't have to find the game object and then get it. So agent equals get component, and the component we're looking for is the Nav Mesh Agent. And it's always good practice to null check, so we're just going to null check real quick. If the agent is equal to null, meaning that we did not successfully grab this component, we can just throw an error, debug.log error, and open up parentheses and just say nav mesh agent is null. Cool. So now we've gotten a handle to the component. That part's done. We have a reference to it. Let's get a variable for a target game object. Let's also set that to private, and I'm going to call this _target. And this is a private variable, but let's go ahead and serialize the field so that we can assign this by dragging the player into this field in the inspector. Okay, now that we have a target, all we need to do is call a method that will set our destination to that target. So if you just open up Google and you go to Nav Mesh Agent Unity, you can open up the scripting API and see what methods are available. Here are all the properties that it has. But let's see, yes, public methods. There should be one in here that will set our destination, set path, set destination right here. So when you're looking at scripting examples, you shouldn't really care what the example is doing. You just kind of want to see the syntax for how they're using this method. So we can see the declaration here, set destination is a bool, and it takes in a vector 3 that is our target. If the destination was requested successfully, otherwise it's false. So if the target's not null, it will go to that target. Okay, and let's see how they're doing it. They're saying my nav mesh agent dot set destination, and then in parentheses, they're passing in the destination. Okay, let's see if we can apply that to ours. Oh wait, were they doing that in an update? They were not. They were doing that only once a button was clicked, like once their mouse button was clicked. So possibly we don't need to do this in update. Possibly we can just do this in start. So we saw them say agent dot set destination. There it is, set destination. And in parentheses, you can even see in the tooltip here, it's looking for a vector 3. So our game object or our target is a game object. So what we're probably going to say is target dot, it's position, right? So target dot transform dot position. Okay, go ahead and we're going to save the script and hop into Unity. Let's assign our target in the inspector. All right, so on the NPC, on the script that's attached, there's now a field down here for target. We can drag the player game object into that field. Okay, and fingers crossed, knock on wood, all that stuff. When we hit play, this capsule should automatically go towards the player. Okay, and it's working. It has snapped to the grid. And as I update the player position, doesn't follow me around. This might be the reason why we would want to do that in update. So here is the last thing, is we are going to take this line of code, cut it, and paste it with an update, save our script, hop back into Unity, and now it should chase us constantly. So as my player moves, cool, and notice that it goes around the obstacles. Awesome. And if my player is, let's say, off the grid, it will get as close to my player as it can while still remaining on the nav mesh. Perfect. Okay, this is beautiful. So this has been the super simple basic overview of the beginning of using the nav mesh system in Unity, how to set up an environment, how to set a target, how to grab the component, and how to set a destination. In the future videos within this series, we are going to be creating a complex enemy AI, I guess NPC AI, that will have different behavior states, such as not alert, walking between waypoints, or just standing and chilling. It will be able to sense where the player is and engage the player, whether that's running away, fighting and attacking. And maybe it'll also have behaviors like searching for the player or talking to other NPCs as well. So we're going to get into that. Cool. Good job today. See you in the next one.